guys spending time with us this morning. So, start with you, Mr. Porter. Let's do this. Our first question is, when you discover a new build property on the market, what's your process in the potential to secure it for a home hotel or a visiting staying hotel?
For each team, I think it's going to be different, obviously. For us, for a home hotel in DC, it's going to be about location, where our stadium is located versus where our practice facility is. Two different sides. I call them the other side of the world. They're completely on the opposite sides of our city. So I'm looking particularly maybe halfway between our facility and the stadium for a hotel. Home hotel, generally, try to avoid downtown, avoid distractions. And then flip it, go for when we're looking in Baltimore or Cleveland, location for us. Our coach likes to be downtown. He likes to give the guys a chance to go out, grab some food, kind of experience the city that we're in. So, like I said, it's going to be different for different teams, but that's us.
Good morning, everyone. I think for our team, when you start with a home hotel, the biggest factor is going to be consistency. That's something just the way that our teams are comprised, that's consistency is something, we're very routine based. So you want to find something that's going to be second nature to the guys, second nature to the coaches, something that they don't have to think about. So I would say for new builds, if a team already has an established home hotel, it's going to be harder to crack that home market. I think a little bit differently for a road team, a new build would be kind of new and exciting to me. That's something where the process for me would start with building relationships, doing a site visit, taking a look at it, and the hotel itself may be new, but there's a good chance that a lot of the staff that are there have had some sort of experience working with, whether it's NFL teams, college football teams, other sports groups, and you can work with them to make sure that stays successful.
Good morning, everybody. I would say what Brian and Slap said is pretty accurate. Proximity, drive from their homes. For us in Fort Lauderdale, a lot of our guys live up, north of Miami, so our home hotel is up in Plantation, which is just outside of Fort Lauderdale. The size of the hotel is important to us. Preferably, we're not at a big, large hotel with 1,000 rooms. We stay at a property that has 250 rooms, about 10,000 square feet of meeting space that we take over. Like Slap said, the relationship's important. We're their top priority. We've been to a hotel where, it's a larger hotel, they have a lot of other groups, and we kind of get moved around the meeting space. That's tough on us. So we look to go, specifically with the home hotels, go back to a place that we're top priority. If we need something, they'll make it happen for us. But like Slap said, the consistency piece and that relationship with our sales manager and event manager is very important.
I think, picking up, I agree with all the sentiments here that have been shared, and I think for the taxis specifically, and I think as Brian noted, is like each team, there's probably maybe 3 or 4 different buckets in terms of how teams are set up. For the taxis, where we operate out of a stadium, so we look at it as kind of a one-stop shop where we have to have a training camp hotel and a night before the game hotel. Ideally, they're the same. But in terms of looking at new properties and how we evaluate that, we have we're obviously we have a relationship with a local hotel now. As we go about that, as we look at hotels in the Houston area, It's obviously important that we're upfront with our current partner to be sensitive to them, to let them know that we're just, it's incumbent upon, I think, and everybody up here would agree, for us to do our due diligence on that. That doesn't necessarily mean we're doing something, but maybe we do it for each other too. So, but I think in the long story short there, again, I agree with what everybody said up here. The Texans is a little unique because we want to have a one-stop shop environment, and like these guys said, for consistency, the players want consistency. So that's pretty much it for us.
Yeah, echoing all of that. One thing though for us, if we were considering moving downtown to Detroit, the issue we're finding is parking for the players. So we would need to have, if they're gonna valet, to understand there's a private area where they could valet, so they're not having to go out in front of the hotel to get their cars right before a game. So yeah, parking would be the big thing for us, and then like I said, a private entrance that they could come in to get to either the space or get their keys to go to their rooms.
That's perfect, Gina. I was gonna follow up that to say, what are the nuances between an away stay and a home stay? Because I was thinking about parking. Is there any others that, you have to have differently than you would with your away stays? Because the parking is a real big one.
I think there's some opportunity. I mean, some teams will do their meetings at their practice facility, so there's some potential for just guest rooms as well, and maybe a meal room. So that I think that's an option as well.
That's awesome adjustments, yeah. Okay, so this one could be loaded. So let's keep the name of the hotel confidential. We have something that we could write to say we cannot say the name of the hotel. But can you think about your most successful and least successful stays of the season and explain just the first thing that comes to your mind when that happened? Maybe a challenging situation too, and how you overcame it. But your best and worst experiences.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us, we always speak to it in the pre-con meetings, is the arrival process sets the tone for the entire stay. The transparency, the week or two leading into the stay, just feeling comfortable with your event manager and who you're dealing with at the hotel, having that one main point of contact. But if the arrival process is off, the keys aren't working, the buses don't pull in smoothly, the public's walking through, that really is a hectic time when we're first pulling in. So really focusing on the arrival process is important to us, and has kept us from returning from properties where we've pulled in. It's been a nightmare just on the arrival piece of it. We won't go back to that property because of it. So that's important to us.
For us, I think you guys probably hear this a lot. I think it's just for one of the experiences we've had is where there's disconnect in the sales and the event phase there. But I don't know necessarily, but how you get through that per se. But I think one thing that I've learned in the time that I've done this is like if there's no love for it, and it's up for us to feel that. But if you feel, sometimes you got to trust your instincts. If there's not love for it from the other side, it's probably not. It's buyer beware. It's probably not going to work. And let's face it, that's for all of us here. You got to love what you do. You got to really, really want it. And if you really want the business, it's gonna, it's probably going to be turn out that way when the teams come in there. So I think for us, and then just for being negotiating on things that are objectively negotiable, right? There's some things that are, hey, look, we can't do this, but like if we talk to 8 other hotels and they say, hey, we allow this in, and you're the 9th hotel, and let something in, that's a tough slam. But if you have something where you can't, where we encountered this last year, and you can't, just all right, then let's have that out. At least let's have it out with a rational answer that helps. At least from my standpoint, that helps immensely as we go through that.
Good, everything I was going to say pretty much. Transparency, like when we start talking, 2 to 3 weeks out, if you're going to have a staffing issue, or you've got something going on in the hotel, there's a band maybe in the lobby or something like that, just being very transparent, telling us the truth, letting us know what to expect. And when we go through the videos and we lay everything out, we expect all of that that's how it should go. And like surprises are not, they're gonna happen, but we don't like them. So just being like very truthful, and then also echoing what you said, I wanna feel like you want us there. and that you like having teams, that's always feels positive.
So a lot of times you guys find that if a hotel dedicates a successful like salesperson and EPM, that shows that you're very dedicated to teams. Do you have anything you want to add to it?
Yes, I do. I'm going to speak to one specific stay that we had last year. I'm not going to mention the hotel.
Thank you.
But it was probably one of the best stays that I've ever had in the 20 years that I've been doing this. And the main thing that stuck out to me is from the GM to the salesperson to the event manager, you could just feel them. They weren't on top of you, they weren't suffocating you, but if you needed something, they were right there, right? And it felt like they want the business and we wanted to be there. And I mean, it was unbelievable. And that hotel has won Hotel of the Year in the past. And there's a reason that they've won that, right? Because they were committed to doing a great job for us. And we reciprocate that by giving them the business. So to me, you have a strong event manager, you have a strong salesperson, you have a strong GM that want the business, that's gonna make for a successful stay. On the flip side of that, I've had stays where the event manager shows up for arrival and then disappears. And you're sitting there talking to maybe a banquet person, or you've got 4 or 5 different people that you're trying to deal with, and they might have some information over here, and it's just not good. So I think having those 3 components is key to a successful stay.
The stay goes pretty fast, so being present, boom, it's over.
Yeah, I think just essentially echoing everyone, the best stays come from cohesiveness and when everything is tied together. The arrival process is probably the most important. And that's where some of the best stays come from. For me, the best stay of this past season, everything was already set up in the meeting space by the second day of the first day of an advance. Like Wi-Fi was rolling, everything. The event manager was extremely transparent with everything going on and a proactive communicator, and that really led to a successful stay. On the contrary, the stays that aren't your favorite, it feels disjointed, and I think the thing that happens unfortunately sometimes is when arrival is not smooth, that really sets it up for not a great stay.
Well, we've talked a lot about the event manager in this last question, so I know for professional sports in general, sometimes my event manager knows what's happening with the teams before our sales. So can you just kind of describe, what you value most in working with your EPM, and maybe even some traits that an ideal event manager has?
Sure, absolutely. I think rolling in a little bit from the last question, number 1 for me is communication, 2 is transparency, and 3 is someone who's very organized. So I think it speaks for itself, but a proactive communicator, someone who's very transparent. Things do happen, and we're all aware of that, and we feel like in our role we kind of share a common goal with the hotel, in the sense that we both want to provide the best environment for our players and coaches to be able to succeed on game day. So use us as resources and trust us as one of your own, in the sense that if keys aren't working, if unfortunately checkouts were running late, flipping the rooms is going slower, include us in that conversation. Let us be a part of saying, okay, well then let's make sure the players' rooms are done. Let's make sure our coaches are good. And then I'll handle the staff. We'll have them wait a little bit. Perfectly fine. I think transparency and in that sense is huge. And then communication, when you're proactively communicating and have that relationship, That's next. And then obviously someone who's very organized as well. You want them to understand your specs, understand your group needs. As Gina mentioned earlier, like everything from the BEOs to the room list, I think organization would be the third key for me.
Yeah, just to, I mean, I won't talk too long on this since I just talked about it, but having a good event manager, somebody, I mean, just what Slap said, right? You want to be able to communicate with them. You want them to tell you everything that's going on in the hotel, and the flip side, you know, just having that relationship so that they trust you, you trust them. I mean, it's big. And it starts with, you know, when your advanced person gets to the hotel and they're organized and they know the schedule and everything's ready to go. But yeah, so that's, I mean, it's an important, very, very important part of the process. Correct.
Do you guys have anything you want to add to that?
I think with certain properties, I mean, usually it's cookie cutter and, you know, it's your normal setup, but someone who can think outside the box. You're going to run into some issues, and what we've done it this way is just there's a million different ways you can do something, and the Dolphins may like it a certain way. You know, can we look at things differently? Can the hotel be flexible to make, you know, like Slap said, we're just trying to make it a great stay for the players and coaches. So how can we think outside the box to kind of meet our needs, I guess?
I think for us, I mean, like for when I go in and on the advances and meet with everybody, it's a little counterintuitive, but I kind of like where it's a type A personality, where it's almost like someone's like, hey Clay, we're doing this. I'm like, wait a minute, you know, and then, but it takes a little bit of that, right? You need somebody, especially with the staff, somebody's got to be out running point because you're taking phone calls, all of us are doing different things. So I think, you know, that's you know, that personality type, I think it's really required. We had some stuff happen this year with, you know, I think everybody here, maybe with the cold weather we encountered at the end of the year, and we had some good CSM that really got us through that. You know, we're gonna have some rolling blackouts in the city that we're in, and they were on top of it. Everything was, they had a plan, they had everything, and so I think that's certainly, you know, a big part of it for me in terms of like what we're dealing with. And I think to what Scott touched on too is like, you know, between all the teams here at the core, we probably do a lot of things the same way, but it's almost like if Scott was at a hotel and then we were in a week later, you almost have to have an operational reset, right? Where it's just like you really have to kind of like not tear it down to the studs, but you almost have to, so you catch those little deviances or nuances that each team has. And then when you walk into the pre-con, you can tell that people did that. You know, they looked at the details, so that's kind of that for us.
Echoing what everyone said, but just being present, it gets confusing if I have to call, you know, the banquet manager because something's out in the meal room, or I need to call, you know, this person in security or this person from, you know, AV. It's nice if I can just have one person and I call them for everything. We're running around, there's so many people saying things to us, it's nice if I have one point of contact. Just something I was thinking about, it's not with the actual stay, but because we're kind of in this advancing time, like citing hotels. I know it's difficult, but for me, and seeing Gretchen made me think of this, is when we site, it's oftentimes the salesperson who's doing it, which is great, they understand the business, but sometimes if the CSM is at the site visit, it really helps because they understand what we're gonna want. So
Set you up for the communication.
yeah, and you know, it may be a different one that you have, but they're the ones that are there, you know, the 2 days we're there and they understand what we need. So I just find sometimes that the site visits go smoother if we have that.
Great, that's great information. Okay, so for your specific team franchise, who's the decision maker regarding the hotel choice in each city? Is it a collaborative effort? Who are the individuals? You know, what is your process and who's involved in making decisions for your stays?
Again, I think it's going to be different for a lot of teams, but ultimately for us, I'll go out, site if I have to, come back with a list of hotels, and talk to my head coach. And he's going to sit there and majority of the time he's going to tell me that he trusts me and to pick the best hotel that I think fits. But I don't do anything without asking him first. And I think the majority of us, if it's a general manager or a head coach, it's a collaborative effort. But that's how it is for us.
Yeah, I think it's fairly similar to what Porter mentioned. The ultimate decision maker for us is our general manager. He's the one who signs the contracts. At the same time, he's going to lean on our department to make the decision of which property is the best, and we're going to take the values from our head coach and GM and make that fit and recommendation.
Sound the same? Okay, you're getting into food, fun times. Your nutritionists are tasked with fueling their athletes. With understanding the recent rise in food costs nationally, how can we partner better with you? Hold on a second. With that, I had some properties add some things with me too. Is there a way for you to, instead of it's for this many people, or can you make, I need this pounds, like what are some creative things that you're doing on food and beverage with the rising costs to offset what's going on in the market?
Something new we're doing this year on our menus, we had our nutritionist put a percentage of what's consumed. So if it's salad, the salad station, 20% of the 150 guaranteed consumes that. And for each line item, she put that there. So hopefully when you guys give it to your chefs, they'll be able to see, hey, we can save some money in this area. We don't need to prepare for 150 people. So we're gonna try that this year.
That's very cool.
I think one of the things I'm gonna work on this year for us is just the, and I'm kind of trying to figure this out, is just trying to figure out a way to get our director of wellness involved at the sales phase for us. And that way he can, we kind of sort through some of this stuff ahead of time. Hopefully that helps to this question here, but that's something that we're gonna look at doing.
Anything to add, guys? Okay. All right, so, can you guys explain, we've got new people here, new hotels. Can you guys explain flex scheduling for our hotels and how this affects your team so we can ensure how it works, first of all, and then how we can support you?
So, obviously flex scheduling's been around for a while, right? Sunday, they go from 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and vice versa. This coming year is going to be the first time that they're going to say you can flex a game from a Sunday to a Monday. I know everybody's probably heard they've been talking about Thursday night. I personally don't think that's going to happen, but who knows? This league's doing some crazy stuff. It's only going to be weeks 14 through 17, to my understanding, so it's the back end of the season. And I think the way they've kind of done it the last couple of years with that Saturday-Sunday game, they've kind of given the 6 games that they're going to possibly flex, and we've been able to write that in the contract and hold space for a Friday night or a Saturday night. I think that's what a lot of teams are going to honestly have to do. It's going to be difficult because you're not going to know. They're not going to give you ahead of time. It's going to be based on how the season's going. And whatever teams are successful, whatever matchups are, the league sees as a, great game, that's what's going to get flagged. So it is going to be difficult to kind of figure that out. But I think the more that we can kind of put that into the contract and kind of hold the space, I think it's definitely not going to be easy. I'm not trying to make light of it, but
Make it like an option towards it, and maybe
yeah.
your discussions continue to see if maybe where it stands with the hotel, where it stands with you guys. But that would be a way to do it in the contract.
You guys want to add
You guys want to add it?
I think that along with just that flexibility of hotels in the contracting phase is going to become a component of the decision-making process. I think that's important to understand and just something to share ahead of time, to be transparent from our side as well. There's, if a hotel is going to have to charge for both nights, and when doing a contract in May or June, instead of being flexible or being able to have that communication and transparency throughout the season, that may make a difference in hotel selection.
Yeah, I think the financial piece that's going to be big in the decision. So depending on what the options are in the city, if there's a lot of options, and you're asking us to pay for 2 nights, may go elsewhere, but if we don't have a lot of options, and we have to pay the 2 nights, we have to pay the 2 nights. So we'll see how it works out, but I think the financial piece will certainly be a part of it. For the Dolphins, it definitely won't make the decision, because we'll go to, you know, what's going to be best for the team and where these guys can stay focused and do their meetings, but definitely looking at the financial side of it.
Okay, so talking about financial, where's my billing question here? What are some practices you've seen regarding successful follow-up and reconciling for billing for your stays? Because obviously when you guys are on the road, you're boom, 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 boom with your stays and these bills come in. So can anybody share any successful things you've seen?
I don't think it's, I mean, successful, unsuccessful, and the bill's a bill, right? I mean, we stayed there, we gotta pay it, but I think the sooner you guys can, and I know for us sometimes it's a little bit longer than other teams, so I apologize. But I think the sooner we can get it, especially towards the end of the season, when, you know, we're wrapping up and we're not going to the playoffs and we gotta, you know, guys are charging stuff to their room and we're having a payroll deduct. I think the sooner we can get it, the better. Obviously, we can go through it and, you know, argue whatever we're gonna argue and make sure we're getting the money from the